Conscious community, and tonight it's going to be about mediumship, spirit, and spiritualism with Stacy Kopchinski. Thank you. Okay. She is an ordained minister, certified medium, commissioned healer, and national spiritualist teacher through the National Spiritualist Association of Churches, and has been a spiritualist for many years. Stacy is a member of the Lily Dale Assembly and the International Spiritualist Federation. She has served at many spiritualist churches and camps throughout the country, including our local Norfolk Memorialist Spiritualist Church. She has been actively teaching and helping others develop their spiritual skills for the past 7 years. She has started her own communication with those living in spirit when her beloved grandpa left his earthly life for the spiritual life when she was in kindergarten. The most important thing in developing is the desire to help humanity, the commitment to work, and the openness to spirit. Join me in welcoming Stacy. Thank you. Thank you.
So nice. Thank you. My pleasure. Wonderful. Hi. Good evening, everyone here and online, because I hear there's people there. Out there. There's people. Welcome. First of all, want to say thank you so much for inviting me this evening to talk about my favorite topic of all times, which is mediumship and spiritualism, and to be able to share a little bit of my truth and my understanding that might eventually become your truth or your understanding if you choose, right? I want to tell you a little bit about myself first, though, so you can get to know me a little bit and understand a little bit of my sense of humor. Hopefully my accent, you can kind of tell that I am from the Midwest. So I've been told I have an accent. You all have accents out here, but I want to talk to you a little bit. I really do believe in the power of free will, and I really do believe our life is meant to be lived in the most glorious way we can figure out how to live our life, and that we have this support system around us, not only in the physical but in the spiritual realms of life that help us through this journey. And sometimes I wonder if I was almost destined for this, because it was very early in my life that I started understanding that we're way more than just our physical body. And that was when I was very close to my grandfather. At the time, I was the only grandchild, so that made me the best grandchild, just making sure, so my mind anyways. And he ended up getting ill and in the hospital and on life support for a while. And even at that young age, I still very much still communicated with him, even though his mouth wasn't working, right? Because he was on support. And I had this, telepathy, the mind-to-mind communication that so many people talk about. And I knew eventually that he was going to leave this earth plane physically. His body was tiring, and that he was still going to continue on. And shortly after they pulled him off life support, I talked to him. I heard him loud and clear, just like it was him standing next to me, that he was leaving to go be with Grandma, who I never got a chance to meet, and was going to enjoy this life in heaven, and that I should be a good girl and listen to my parents, good words of wisdom. And so when that happened, it was very natural to me not to think like, oh, death is an end. It was very natural for me to think, oh, well, Grandpa's happy, he's living somewhere else, and I will get to see him again. I might not be able to get on a plane and go see him, but I know that I can see him again. And I know that I can almost communicate with him in some way. So then we fast forward to the age of 11, and my parents decide to buy a restaurant in a small town in Wisconsin that was known as the most haunted restaurant in the state of Wisconsin. And we heard right away of all the activity and, oh, don't get the ghosts mad at you. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So my dad still has the restaurant, believe it or not, so 35 years later. So I spent most of my youth growing up in what we now call the paranormal. But yet I could never get over that word paranormal, because I thought, well, I don't know, these people are just living. They're just living next to us. I don't know, they're just here, They helped build the restaurant, so why wouldn't they have some sort of energetic exchange in it? And I got involved in this, in the real development of the science, right? The EVPs, the monitoring, the temperature changes, the electromagnetic fields, and all that kind of stuff. And it was really interesting to watch to me because it wasn't scary. Like we see that on TV sometimes. Somehow we've gotten this concept to fear the dead. And I'm like, ugh, one, they're not dead. Two, they're living. I wonder sometimes if we're the dead ones, right? I'm just saying, to fear them. And I just felt like, well, they're not really mad. They're just kind of doing their things. Doors are opening, pictures are being moved. Well, if she didn't like the way the picture was on the wall, well, we'd move it, so why couldn't she? And it was fascinating to me. And then I got involved in religion, right? Growing up in all these I grew up Baptist and then Catholic, and yet nothing quite fit for me religious-wise. It's like, yeah, I can take a little bit of that, and yeah, I can take that. Wow, I want to eat meat on Fridays. Just uncertain, and got questioning. I'm sure like we all do when we're teenagers and, are 20 and ready to conquer the world because we know everything. And I started, just investing time and energy and learning about what I want my belief system to be. And it was funny because, again, we'll start connecting the dots as we go through the evening. It was a customer at the restaurant that said to me one day, "Hey, have you ever heard of this place called Lilydale, New York?" And I said, "No, why would I have heard that?" And they said, "Well, they have this show on HBO, and you should watch it because they talk to dead people." And I'm like, what? Yeah, like, like how you say you talk to people or you know things. They do this. Well, pack your bags. When are we leaving? When does it open? Tomorrow? Get in the car. And off we went. And for those of you who might not know what Lilydale is, I'll get into that when I get into the spiritualist part, the spiritualism part. But it's a community that's been around, since the mid-1800s, right? Communicating with the philosophy and the science and this idea that we can communicate with those who cross on after this physical life ends. And it was there that I watched these demonstrations of mediumship. I watched these mediums get up in a beautiful forest and go to somebody in the audience and say, "Hey, I have your brother here. And he's really sorry that, he couldn't make it to your wedding, but he definitely saw you and thought you looked sharp in the purple tie." And I thought, what is that? Like, yeah. Wow. And I watched it over and over again. Watched these mediums stand up. All different ages, all different races, all different religious, some of them different religious beliefs, standing up and proving this continuity. And I thought, that's it. Ching, ching, jackpot. I found home. And that made sense to me. And so I drove all the way back to Wisconsin. And like so many of us who are going through some sort of spiritual understanding or awakening or development, you start searching. You start searching for people of like minds that you could say like, yeah, I think I communicate with like my grandfather on a regular basis and not go, oh, yeah, should you go see a doctor about that? It was becoming natural. You want to find your group, you want to find your area. And that's when I started really digging in and trying to find something. And through that process, it brought me to spiritualism, which some of you might have heard of. And I hope you've heard more than just the Wikipedia version, right? But spiritualism is actually the science, philosophy, and religion based on continuity of life demonstrated through mediumship. So it's actually this triangle, if you would. Just kind of like how I love here at the Edgar Cayce Center, when you walk in right here, they have spirit, mind, and physical, right? And it's really interesting that when I started developing and understanding mediumship and understanding how this communication worked, you really have to use all aspects of yourself. Because the physical body, the physicalness of all of this great life experience can kind of dull our soul senses, if you would. Because, well, we can't do that, right? Like, I can't be here, at this center and be home in Wisconsin at the same time. It's physically impossible. But energetically, it's absolutely possible. And so I started to just dive in to any information I could receive, right? Anything. I started taking classes. I started going to different churches, kind of feeling my way, going to different centers, learning different aspects of spiritual being. And I haphazard, or I don't know, maybe it isn't free will. I stumbled upon an institute in Milwaukee, believe it or not, of all places, called the Morris Pratt Institute. And I'm like, well, what's that? So I look it up, and it's all about mediumship and spiritualism, what it is, how it works, why it's normal. And I thought, holy cow, here I had to travel all the way to New York to just travel back to the city I live in to find a school that's going to help teach me about mediumship. So again, is it free will or is there a bigger plan? So I started learning, and I started developing, and I started growing, and I started sharing and meeting other people, other mediums, not just from, Wisconsin, but from all over the world. Spiritualism is practiced really from all over the globe. And I started talking and sharing and learning from and with these other people, and have kind of found my little community. I'm looking over here to this beautiful little group of people that come from the local Spiritualist church, because I'm telling you, no matter where in the world you live, there are Spiritualists. I promise you, even in the smallest town, you will find someone of like mind. So I want to talk tonight and kind of hopefully help you guys understand, maybe even get some education, or learn something maybe about yourself that you haven't, through this conversation this evening about mediumship and the importance of it, and why truly it is not supernatural, and it's not paranormal, it's not magic, it's just normal. It's just a normal way of conversing. Just like you're understanding my language right now. Hopefully some of you might have a hard time with some of my accent, but it's just a form of communication, and we all can do it. You don't have to be born with it. It's not a gift that's given only to certain people. It's a gift that's given to everybody, and it's your choice if you want to. That's the other great thing too. No spirit, no one ever can force you to do something that you're not wanting or ready or open to do. I think that's what also really took a lot of the superstition and the magic tendencies, or the mythical idea of communication with spirit. All those kind of went away once I really started learning what spiritualism is. And to know that this is nothing new. No one invented this recently. I think since humanity has been around, we have been communing with the other side, or the other world, or the other dimensions since we've started learning to communicate. The reason why it is now called modern spiritualism is because a group of people did decide. So let me get into a little bit of history. It's I like fun facts. I'm going to go a little bit deeper than Wikipedia. Again, if you want to look up the idea of ancient spiritualism, communication between this world and a world that we might not be able to see with our physical eyes, right? Spirit communication. Every culture, every religion, every group of humanity has done it in some way, always. If it was just one person that did it, or the whole community that did it. It's always been around. But what we look at as spiritualists, as modern spiritualism, what we look at is we are communicators who not only practice communicating, but we prove, this idea that we prove continuity. And it all kind of started back in March 31st of 1848, right? That's the big day that we call the advent of modern spiritualism. And it happened in a cottage in Hydesville, New York. And it was a small little town, and it was a cottage that was rented out by the Fox family. And in this cottage, small 2-bedroom cottage, lived a family of, I'm stumped right now, I think it was 4 girls and a boy at the time that lived in the cottage. But 2 of the girls, Kate and Margaret Fox, Maggie, would hear rappings at night, just taps, just taps would be heard throughout the cottage. And it would disturb them. It wouldn't allow them to sleep, if you would, right? Because how could you sleep if this is what you're hearing all night, constantly? And somehow the girls got this idea to try to communicate with the noise, see if it had an intelligence of some sort. So one of the girls says, "Hey, do what I do," and does this. Doesn't clap her hands, but just waves her hands to signal too. And all of a sudden, there was the response. Well, if that didn't freak the girls out and wake up their parents, right? Like, come watch this, what's going on? And out of that event, that evening, started to stem this movement that not spirit is impossible to talk to, that spirit is right here and available to talk to if we just open up to communicating. And the girls had neighbors over, and people witnessed this, and it kind of spread across the country pretty quickly, of this idea of there's these people called mediums who can communicate with the dead. Come witness this. And people would show up in hundreds and thousands to witness these demonstrations of mediumship. And what's more important about that is actually it was bringing proof of continuity. So many religions teach that there's an afterlife, right? They preach that there's an afterlife. But with evidential mediumship, it proves there is one. Because if you think about that time, just think about that time, 1848, right? 1848. Women weren't even really allowed to do this. I wasn't allowed to be on stage. I wasn't allowed to have an opinion, right? And I had to wear dress. I had to, act or be a specific way. And you didn't really dance even. I found that out from my parents' restaurant because it has an old ballroom dance floor. And they put that in like 1909 when no one was really allowed to dance. Because, well, that was the work of bad, So if you can only imagine all of these women and men standing up and doing mediumship to thousands of people and proving the continuity, that's pretty powerful. That's a pretty powerful statement. And what was great about it was proving the continuity gave the grieving a little bit of comfort to know that, yes, though their loved one physically is gone, and please understand, grief is real. I mean, it's great that we live on forever. It's fantastic. It's also very difficult in the physical world. Because in the physical world, we live with the main illusion that we're separate from everything, that we stand alone. But yet, in spiritualism, it brings all these worlds together and it says to you, but wait a minute, there is no separation. There is no division. I'm right here. I just changed forms. Can you tune into that? You know? And so this movement starts like just spreading everywhere. It talks about this idea of, okay, you're just partly a physical being. More than that, you're a soul. You're a consciousness that lives forever, because that energy can't be created nor destroyed. It can only change forms. And that soul is animated by the spirit, like on the board right here at Edgar Cayce Center, they might call it the spirit. Some call it God. Spiritualists call it infinite intelligence. But we have a part of that universe, that consciousness inside us that is animating the soul, for the soul to animate the body and have this human experience. But when the human experience is over, it doesn't mean our communication stops, right? Most everybody has had some form of mediumistic experience in their life. And it's not just your mind going through grief creating it. Instead, it's your soul and their soul communicating. And the greatest part about that is once you know that, it actually ignites a passion within you to live this life as best as we can. So it's fascinating to me to look back at the history of spiritualism, right? If you haven't before, and I get it, because if you Wikipedia it, you'll see, oh, but wait, the Fox sisters died alcoholics. Oh, but wait, Houdini and Doyle had a big scandal, right? Houdini was out. And here's what I'm going to say about that, because I'm very honest. I'm not, I'm a researcher. I love to explore. I love to always go deeper than the surface. And that's what spiritualism probably has sparked within me the most, is to always keep asking why. You know how your parents teach you after a while, like, stop asking, No, I wanna ignite that back in you again. Always keep asking why, right? So let's look at some of those things that kind of come up, the negative aspect that you hear about mediumship or spiritualism, is that, okay, but these girls, they made it up. Okay, so my first question is, 1848, let's just even say some of the mediums of the early 1900s. Just for an example, if I was coming to you, I'm not connected right now, so please understand I'm not doing mediumship. This is just a example. If I was coming to you and I said to you, I have, your sister Sally here, and your sister Sally is saying, do you remember when you were 7 and you wanted the Betty pop-up doll? And you didn't get it for Christmas, but you got it for your birthday. She wants to give that to you to remind you of that youthfulness, that excitement, that sometimes, you have to wait for something, And I just proved to that woman that continuity. What part of that could, in 1848, I Google search? What part of that could I quick flip up my phone and look for a picture to describe what she looked like? I mean, it was just impossible. Half the time, you didn't even know your relative passed until it got Western Union horse mailed to you, 2 weeks later. So just have that be, like if you're an analytical person, think about that for a minute. How did they know that? Some of the mediums of the past, and even some mediums currently today, because it's still being studied, and I'm grateful for that. And I hope it continues to be studied. And I hope that we continue to evolve in our understanding and our mediumship grows to even different levels. But just from the core basics that we learned from our pioneers, how did that happen? How did they know that? I mean, these mediums were locked in rooms. so they couldn't see anybody or know of anybody to hear conversation. Women were stripped of their clothes, 1850s, and put in front of not just dozens, but hundreds of people, predominantly men, to then stand before you and prove this continuity. Oh, they're cracking their toes. I have not met anybody who can crack their toes so loud that it vibrates an auditorium. Like, those are some toes. Right? How did that happen? Do you know? And then the ridicule that they had to endure. Because let's face it, no matter what in our journey, and you know, to each their own, we all have our own special journey, our own time together. But you know, when you enter into some of the spiritual aspects of it, there's people who are going to judge you. There's people that are going to tell you, you're crazy. That's not normal. It's wrong. And that can get tiring to the mind and the soul. But yet these people endured. They continued to show up. They continued to do readings. They continued to prove that continuity. And that's pretty powerful. And I think we have to, you know, I think to respect some of that, dig into the history. Dig into the, you know, really dig into it, you know. Houdini and Doyle, that's another one that comes up a lot, the scandal of Houdini trying to debunk spiritualism, you know, as all mediums are fraud, everything's magic. Yeah, you know what? I'm not going to say all mediums aren't, because just like teachers and doctors and dentists and any profession out there, you have good ones and you have bad ones. So I'm not here to say, oh, every medium's perfect. Far from it. But what I'm here to talk about and here to try to educate about is this bigger idea of what mediumship can do for oneself and do for humanity when we look at all the details, not just certain ones that are thrown our way, right? So that scandal, that started as a friendship. They were very close friends, Doyle and Houdini. And their wives were close and they vacationed together. And I believe it wasn't close to here somewhere they were when the fight broke out. This idea of, you know, Houdini wanted a reading, Doyle's wife gave him the reading, she wrote it in English. His mother never spoke English, so it has to be all fake. But yet there were parts of it that were real. So then can you imagine your best friend saying, my best friend, your wife stinks? Like, I don't know. That might have started something right there. And I think he was right to go out and prove, because there was some people taking advantage. There was. I'm not going to say there wasn't. So yeah, it's good. But everyone only pays attention to that. They don't pay attention to all of this great mediumship that's happening even privately within one's home. You know, I don't know how many are online, and I see how many are here tonight, but I bet you at least 60 to 70% of the people present here and online can tell me a story, which I don't think is a story, it's an experience of a loved one that you lost, that you either felt or saw or heard their presence after their physical death. It's not uncommon, right? You see the videos of the cardinals. Oh, love it, right? You know, somewhere, you know, it's like, oh, there's a cardinal, so good. And then you watch the cardinals trying to get in the house, like, hey, I'm here, open the door, let me land on you. Or a butterfly, or rainbows, feathers, pennies, dreams. You're gonna say, I had the best dream ever. I know my mom's okay because she came to me that night. And I'll say, absolutely. I might not call it a dream, but I'll recognize it for what it is. It's communication. And that's simply what mediumship is. Mediumship is communication with the spiritual existence of life. If you call that heaven, if you call that the other side, the next dimension, Summerland, whatever you call it. See, I don't fight about semantics of words. I more want to feel it, you know. Spiritualism is, like I said, the science, philosophy, and religion. So I choose in this life to be a spiritualist. So my belief and my religious practice is spiritualism. There are mediums who aren't spiritualists, and that's fine too. The thing is what I want you to do is not be afraid of communicating with your loved ones. That's truly what mediumship is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a language that you learn to communicate with those around you. Some of us learn it to do it for others, and that's great too. And you all have the ability to do that. Though some of you might say to me, oh no, can't, won't, can't, and that's fine too, right? Because the thing is we look at ourselves as more than just this physical body. And that's the first step in developing mediumship. You know, if you're going to try to communicate like how we communicate, right? Body language, eye staring, words, you know, even sign language, right, is a form of communication. We don't necessarily sometimes need the words, but we're learning a style of communication. And that's what mediumship is a style of communication. And you don't use your physical senses to communicate. You have to use the true essence of who you are, that soul, that spirit. That's what you need to use to communicate. You have to activate that energy within you and make it bigger than your physical presence. And then you start to hear or see or know or feel, possibly even smell and taste things that aren't really here in the physical, right? You kind of just know something. Or you smell grandma's perfume, Red Door by Estee Lauder. That's how we kind of do that, is we expand our awareness, our consciousness. You know, it's so amazing to be sitting here. As a spiritualist, we just love Edgar Cayce. We just love him. You know, the sleeping prophet, right? But he altered his state of consciousness. He allowed his soul to expand so big while his body rested and connected to this consciousness, this world that we return to when this life experience is over, and allow just the information to pour in. And he did it not with his physical mind. You know, I read his stuff. You know, you read about his, you know, the ESP and all of that. It wasn't his physical mind. He was just allowing himself to be a responder and receive the information and let it flow. And that's what mediumship does. We expand our awareness to the other side, to Summerland, where we go after this life. I'm not going to tell you what it looks like. Oh no. I don't know how many levels there are. I don't know. The only thing that I know is that I exist, even when this body decides not to anymore. And all I know is that when I can alter my consciousness to the more dynamic, energetic part of who I am, information just kind of comes. I'm doing it from that state of love. I'm doing that from that state of openness, awareness, that not only do I have a piece of that consciousness within me. But all of you have that piece of consciousness. And all of those that were and are and will be have that piece of consciousness. So really, I'm not separate from anyone. And this is where we start developing what you might hear, both in the psychic development and the mediumistic development, about clairs. Anybody hear the word clairvoyant? Right, pretty common one. Clairaudient, hearing. Clairsentient, feeling. Claircognitance, knowing. Tasting, smelling. I always get those two confused, and in case my teacher's watching, I won't say it out loud. Wink, wink. Where's the camera for them? Yeah, wink. Okay. But that's where those senses come in, those extra senses. And it's used both in our psychic development and our mediumistic development. And here's an important thing to know. There's a difference between the two. A lot of times people aren't aware. They think they went and saw a psychic, or they saw a medium, or they see a psychic medium, which is true, right? Some people. But there is a slight energetic difference. Pink Floyd does not want to be called the Rolling Stones, nor do the Rolling Stones want to be called Pink Floyd. However, that's both good music, right? So the same thing happens when we're developing psychically and mediumistically. And psychic development, for my understanding, because I like the KISS method, the keep it simple spiritualist. Oh, good. Right, good one. I like that method. Psychic development is me reading your energy, you reading my energy, us reading the center's energy, nature's energy. Why do we feel good in nature? Right? Because we're feeling its energy, its vibratory rate. And that's that psychic development, right? We feel the energy of the center, all the knowledge that has been on the stage. You can't help but feel it when you walk through the doors, right? That's psychically. That's you tuning in to the physical world around you. Then when we decide to move into the mediumistic, into mediumship, we're communicating with that of not physical energy, but spiritual energy. And in mediumship, really, mediumship's base is to prove the continuity of life. One, especially for spiritualists, right? That's what we want to do. We want to prove to each and every one of you that life continues on. Because once that's proven to you, you can't unlearn that. Then you start thinking about yourself and your purpose and your energy and what are you putting out into the world. It's what's probably led you to the center, on some form, right? Is something had occurred in your life to make you realize that you're so much bigger than what you are. Tragically or sadly, I'm not sure if that's the right word, because I'll tell you, spirit's happy. I haven't met a spirit that isn't like, woohoo, I'm here, I'm still living. They're like, oh, shucks, Never met that yet. So that being said, that should bring you to the bigger question, right, of who are you? But when we're connecting into that energy, the spiritual realm energy, that's different. Mediumship should never drain you. Psychic work will. Psychic work will drain your energy because you're using your energy. I'm using my energy to read your energy. I'm just existing in this energy and having to exist with all of you and your energy, right? That can be taxing. Mediumship's different. We connect to the higher vibrational of the spiritual world because the physical world doesn't exist in that spiritual realm. So the vibration is lighter or higher or whatever you want to call it, right? It's more loving, healthier, easier. So they just kind of give us information. Notice how in Edgar Cayce they called him the sleeping prophet because he looked like he was sleeping. even thought he was. Like he's like, I have different experiences. I was over here doing this and over here doing that, right? Because he was physically at rest. He wasn't worried if it was raining or if the phone was going to ring or if what was on for dinner, did he leave the stove on or his job tomorrow. He wasn't tied up in any of the physical energy. Instead, he allowed himself to enter into that spiritual energy, which is actually renewing. I actually know some mediums who will say they get like a high after working a little bit. Because how we explain it, the KISS method again, is that we have to raise our consciousness, raise our energy, raise our vibration. And spirit has to lower theirs. And we have to meet and find a clear channel. And sometimes as we meet, we might only get a split second of that meeting where we get maybe 1 or 2 pieces of information. But when we learn to control our energy and to control our vibration, and we learn to understand what spirit is like, we can start to find harmony, and we can hold conversations for more than just a few seconds or a quick. How many of you had that real quick experience that you wish you could have turned into a longer experience? Like, oh, I heard the voice. Like, I heard him call my name, but now I want to talk to them. It was that quick kind of drop-in of a vibration or a frequency. So we have to learn how to do that. And that takes time. It really does. It takes time, so be kind to yourself if you're wanting to develop. Take time to learn and read and really understand who you are. In mediumship, there's no quick. There's no quick, take this in a day and here's your certificate. I wished, but it's not. I'm still, Ashley, beautiful, introduction. Yes, I really just like to read and take tests, I'm still a student. I'm still constantly learning how to communicate with spirit and understand the spiritual realm better. I'm still trying to understand myself as I work through this experience. And I'm still trying to not only better myself, but better the people around me, or help the people around me, and let them better me too. So really be kind with yourself when you're starting to develop mediumship. Because I'm telling you, depending on how you were brought up, again, I love my family. I was brought up a wonderful family, somewhat religious family, and when you hear all the time, that can't happen, that's not real, that can't happen, that's impossible, that can't happen, you're just imagining things. That's a part of deprogramming ourselves that we have to go through. And that can take some time. For me, it took me 45 years to become like this. So if I had to deprogram it all, I think it would probably take, another good, 100 years. But that being said, every one of you has the ability to connect to spirit. Every single one. Spiritualism teaches that in our philosophy. No one is greater than or lesser than. We are all equal. Nobody has the special gift. Everyone has the gift. And it's up to you to use it if you want. You can easily not, too. I just want to say that. There's some people who are like, I don't know if I want to know. And that's fine, too. But it's just a way of feeling comfort and support throughout this journey. I go back to the beginning when I was, talking about being in that paranormal world a little bit and hearing some of the things and seeing some of the things that I saw and how sometimes people interpreted it. Sometimes people are like, oh my God, the door slammed because they're mad. I'm like, well, didn't you ever see the movie Ghost? Like, it took a long time to get that penny up the wall. They're not mad, they're just trying real hard. Or their force was used just a little bit too much, And I kept thinking to myself, but these people are here for a reason. These spirits are here for a reason. And once I started communicating with them, once I started understanding mediumship, I realized it was just these people who built that place. It was built in 1838. It's a 2-story brick gargantuan building that was used as, a stage stop with a dance floor and rooms, and, hundreds and hundreds of people would come through there on any given day. This family of 5 put their entire life into that. Why wouldn't they want to go back and check on it? Why wouldn't they want to see what's happening there? Why wouldn't she want to straighten that picture if she doesn't like where we put it? Right? And that's what your loved ones are also trying to do for you, is to really let you know that they're right here. You know that idea of separation that we talked about in the beginning? The idea of separation of heaven or the other side, or the 5th, 10th dimension is 22 galaxies away, or you have to run around Pluto 14 times, which may or may not be a planet, and then up and over to the left is heaven. It's really not. It's just right here. It's just right next to us. We have our blinders on, right? We have our blinders on. We are thinking, oh, but we only can be here. And no, they're right here. They're right next to us. So how do you know if you're a medium, right? That's a good question. Thanks for asking. I don't know who said that. I think my head. Start looking for signs. Start looking for symbols. And when I say look or feel or hear, sometimes I don't mean with your physical senses. Have you ever thought about yourself as a spiritual being? Or do you only see yourself as a physical being? It's a question that I ask often. Because if I would ask you to introduce yourself to me, I wonder what you would say. What would you say? Would you mind if I ask you? Yeah.
My name's Matthew, or that's what they call me anyway.
All right, I like that, Matthew. Great. Yeah.
What would you like to know?
Well, tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm 34 years old. I live in my van with my cat, and we travel around. And, Virginia Beach is kind of my home port.
Fabulous.
At the moment.
I know you guys might not be able online to hear this, so can you just do a repeat for those online?
My name's Matthew. I'm 34. I live in my van with my cat Moon Sugar, and we travel around and tour mostly the southeast for now. But Virginia Beach happens to be my home port, and we're just in town at the moment.
Oh, fabulous. Perfect. See? Good idea. Now we all know who Matthew is, right? We met him. Wonderful. I love cats too, by the way, so fantastic. And notice how he identified himself, his name, where he lives, what his age is, who his roommates are, fantastic roommate. Considers Virginia Beach his hometown, right? Which is great. It was great. Now I want to get to know Matthew. And what's interesting, if I would stay a day with Matthew, I'd start to get to really know him. That was his introduction. He only introduced me to his physical self. But there's a part of Matthew there that I really want to know. Right? Because I know Matthew in him has that divine spark, as I do. But then there's a soul that encases Matthew. And that's probably his compassion and his understanding and his maybe desire or his love of cats, right? I don't know. I'm just assuming. I don't want to say, but I have a good inclination. I'm kind of reading your energy, right? Yeah, safe to assume, exactly. But there's that part of Matthew that we want to know, the character of who Matthew is, who he is at his core. That's the part of Matthew that I want to discover. And I want Matthew to discover. I'm still discovering mine too. But we tend to, as humans, we tend to shift our awareness all to that physical aspect of ourselves. But yet even in, again, I'm going to keep repeating it because I walk by it when you walk in here. You know, Edgar Cayce says the physical is the last manifestation after the spiritual in the mind. But yet we give so much power to the physical. And mediumship and spiritualism helps us kind of get out of the physical for a while. You know, through its philosophy, through its science, through its understanding, through its long hours of conversations. Because let me tell you, if you get a bunch of us in a room together, how I'm going to describe mediumship and how they're going to describe mediumship and they're going to describe, we're all going to be a little bit different. And that's great, and that's fantastic. But this energy here, the mind and the spirit, like Edgar Cayce says, or the soul and the spirit, like I say, it doesn't matter, or others say, that's the part of you that needs to learn the communication. That's the part of you that you start to develop your senses, your soul senses. Right? So can you imagine for a minute with me, just have an experience with me for a minute. If you have lost someone because of their transformation from physical to spiritual, or you've lost a pet that you've loved deeply, a tree that you've loved deeply, whatever it is, if you've lost something because of the physical transformation for a minute, right? Just start to kind of think of them in your mind, right? Maybe the last time you saw them smile, or the last time they barked at you, or, you know, the last time that flower bloomed. Think about that. And when you have it in your mind, can you shift your awareness to the heart, that character, that energy, that soul that's you? Not the limitation of the mind, but instead the unlimited source of love. Can you shift that? And can you start to feel an emotional connection to that loved one in your mind? And when you start to kind of feel that, and it might feel like you're recalling memories, and that's fine. And when you start to feel that connection to them, you know, not the source of loss, but the source of love. Can you even try to hear in your mind maybe them telling you that they loved you, or the way they purred, or a sound that's familiar to them? Can you hear that? And what you're doing is you're, in essence, calling them to you. You're saying, hey, I recognize that you're still here. My mind, my monkey mind, that physical mind with all of its thoughts and stuff, recognizes that you might be gone, but my heart and my soul knows that you're not. And you start to kind of feel the sense of their closeness, right? Now, just again, with me for a moment, if you could tell them one thing, what would it be? Actually, maybe even hear or feel yourself telling them that out loud to yourself. It doesn't have to be out loud, to yourself. And then ask, just to validate this, just to see if this is real. What is something that I could see, feel, or hear tomorrow to know that this experience was actually real? And the first thing that comes to your mind, be it a number, a song, a word, a picture, an animal, a plane, whatever. Just hold that image for a minute, right? And then just kind of now, just shift your awareness back into the mind. Just say, yep, all right, I have that image, we'll see. We'll see if tomorrow I see this, right? We'll see if tomorrow I hear this. But that right there is the simple form of mediumship and communication. It's the simple start, the simple practice of shifting your awareness to the bigger essence of who you are and allowing the limited physical existence to take a little breather or a rest. Right? That's simply how mediumship works. Now, of course, is it a little bit more than that? Yes, it is. Right? There are ways to practice and develop that clairvoyance, that clairaudience, that clairsentience. Most of you all feel it first. Some people see, some people don't visualize at all. You know, but it's possible, and it's simply just that easy. Simply just shifting that awareness. You know, you don't have to spin around or do magical things or have anything particularly line up or the plan. I still do believe in the planets sometimes, though, that, you know, Mercury retrograde, Gatorade. I mean, it is weird. Same thing with like Murphy's Law. I believe in a lot of natural and spiritual laws. Murphy's Law, I want to meet that person. I got to meet Murphy. I got some things to say. But that being said, it really is that simple. It really is just that slight adjustment. And then learning how to do it all the time. You know, the thing is if you don't want to do it all the time, you don't have to. But if you don't live a spiritually driven kind of life, or at least, you know, a little needle to the spiritual side, it's going to be really hard. You know, but let me just say, it's not impossible. Scientists study mediumship and believe it. Again, if you look back in the history, you talk about Hayward Carrington and Sir William Crookes, and well, even Chris Conley now in Scotland is doing wonderful you know, scientific studies into the brain and how mediumship and how mediums' brains are affected. Like, it actually can show up, you know, in that world. But again, you have to live both physically, have a good life, both spiritually. You know, remember that your spirit first, having a human experience. But yet we kind of always go to the human aspect first, right? But I can't because of this, you know. Spirit's always encouraging us, always encouraging us. But start looking for those signs and symbols. Now, my favorite meme that I'm seeing on the internet all the time is, I ask the universe for a sign, but then I need a signier sign. Anybody seen that one? Like, all right, if this is real, I'll see 111 all the time. Well, maybe you don't see it on the clock, but the car in front of you, license plate has 111, and then, you know, you go to call your friend and they give you their number and it ends in 4111. Well, that doesn't count because I thought it was a clock, right? Or I need a signier sign. How many of, and I'll admit that, I do that. I don't know. I'm sure maybe some hands are up, admit that. We need a signier sign. Funny. But you have to start accepting the signs that you're given. I mean, if you've asked to see a rainbow and you see a rainbow, don't limit it to just the sky. It could be a rainbow on a bumper sticker. It could be a rainbow on a t-shirt. You know, they're creative. I'm telling you, some of your loved ones are going to make you work for it. There's many moms and dads that are like, haha, here's some payback. Brothers and sisters that still like to poke. Children that still like to be, you know, children. You know, but you have to be open to looking for it. You know, it's not that I'm just this, you know, I am a unicorn and rainbows loving kind of girl, but I'm also a very realistic kind of girl too. So I have to learn them in balance. And you should too. You know, sometimes when you hear those voices in your head that are encouraging, that are, you know, telling you, good job, we're so quick sometimes to dismiss those, aren't we? But then when we hear the voices in the head, like, well, you can't because, oh, we love to own those, don't we? We're like, ooh, let me hang you up. But spirit is there always encouraging us, inspiring us. I don't think everyone's going to claim to be a medium. I do. I claim to be a medium, and I claim to be a spiritualist, because spiritualism is a practice that was created by a gargantuan group of people. That's what I love about it too. I want to talk about the diversity of these people that come together. And they really only wanted to organize because they had to protect all these mediums from getting arrested. We only organized and really formed a religion to more protect our rights to prove this continuity. It's a very open philosophy, spiritualism is. And there's different spiritualist groups all over the world, so look for that. No matter if you're online and tuning in from the US, or if you're tuning in from England or Japan or Australia, spiritualism exists, like I said, globally. This idea, it's not even an idea anymore, it's a truth to me, but this communication process is done all over the world. But we've banded together to be around like-minded individuals, to learn how to develop, to practice and prove that continuity to others. Some of my favorite people are the biggest naysayers ever. I'm like, oh, I love you, come talk to me. Because they have opinions, and their opinions matter. We have to talk about this stuff. We have to have discussion, and I'm not here, they say spiritualism, one of the things they talk about spiritualism, and I love it, is that it's not a religion of conversion, it's a religion of conviction. No matter what you believe, and you have every right to believe what you believe, and I have every right to believe what I believe. I have been instilled in the truth that I continue on, and that I can communicate with anyone who has passed over as long as I alter my state of awareness. And I think that's important. Like if you're uncertain, if you're kind of uncertain about what's next, study that. Get into that a little bit more. Try to find your truth. And then move from there. Because if you really believe in your heart of hearts that there's just no way, well, that's what's exactly going to happen. You'll pick up the line and no one will be there. It's not because they're not there, maybe, but you might believe they aren't, and that's okay. But it doesn't happen. Mediumship doesn't happen. You're not ever forced into it, I think, is what I'm trying to say, is that you're not ever forced into it. It's something that you choose to do. It's something that you want to do. It's something that starts to intrigue you. And as you start to live that, you start to see it. So then the signs, no matter how remote or how right smack dab in front of your face they are, you start recognizing them. People who come up to me and say, I have the strangest story. This is crazy. You're not going to believe it. This was so weird. I might sound a little nuts if I tell you this. I'm like, oh, bring it. Tell me your language. You are speaking my language. Because the more that I have started on that tip of the iceberg to understand spiritualism and to understand this process of life and transformation, the less I know, I find out. And the less I'm okay with finite, and I don't need finite answers, and the more open I become, the more aware I become. And the more normal it becomes. I'm not saying that we don't, as spiritualists, mourn when somebody dies. Of course we do. We miss that physical existence of them. But we know we don't have to miss the soulful existence of them, because they're right here next to us. So you can kind of play with spirit. It's not meant to all be so serious either, right? Like I always laugh about that because sometimes it's like, well, you can't have this and you can't do this and you can't eat that and you can't all these rules, you know, of how it's not meant to be that way. It's sacred, yes. Mediumship to me, because it is part of my religious practice, and mediumship to most people who practice the religion of spiritualism, it is a very sacred, wonderful experience. You don't know, hence the word medium, right? It is fantastic to be the medium in the bridge between the worlds. It is fantastic to look at somebody who is missing someone so much, and you can give them information that still proves that they're aware and exist around them. It brings a sense of comfort to both spirit and to the one here still living in the physical existence. It is amazing to be that person in the middle. My hope is that humanity evolves so quickly that all mediums lose a job. That's the big ultimate picture, I think. Especially, I think, too, for, you know, like in our religion, we talk about that. We talk about the day we don't have to prove continuity anymore because everybody just knows. But until then, we'll stand up and we'll carry that torch. So even just being here or being online, intrigued with it, I say, oh, congratulations. How can I help you? What more can I tell you? You know, look for the signs for sure. That's probably the first thing that you need to be aware of, is looking for the signs that your loved ones are still there. And developing yourself spiritually. We talk about meditation a lot, and a lot of spiritual practice talks about meditation. Know thyself, right? That you're never going to really fully. Matthew's never really going to fully know Matthew. Stacy's never going to fully know Stacy. And thank goodness, because I really hope I'm not the same person, tomorrow that I was yesterday. I hope I can continue to learn and grow. So I hope I have to keep learning and understanding who I am every day. But we talk about this idea of meditation. Edgar Cayce talks about it too in Healthy Living. There's really no spiritual practice that I have ever come across that doesn't work on some form of meditation. Breath work is meditation to me, right? Movement, Tai Chi is meditation to me. Meditation is that connection to self, is learning to connect to self. And when you can learn to connect to self, and you can truly start to identify yourself more than just your identity, just your physical identity, when you can start identifying yourself as a charming, back to Matthew again, this charming, compassionate, creative, sometimes a little bit forceful personality in that body, we start to get in touch with that true self. And we start to become more of our true self than our physical self. And once we become more a part of our truer self, it almost is like a signal tower to the spiritual world of like, woo, and they start to draw closer to us because they are living their true form, right? They're not encased in the physical anymore, held down by the illusion of separation. They're free floating, if you would, and can communicate with us. And so we use meditation as that practice of getting to know yourself. And then as you meditate, as you start to get to know yourself better, then you can start to attune to spirit. Then you can actually start to ask them questions or ask them to engage in conversation. And then, we don't have to be the receptacle, if you would. Like, well, we have to just sit here and be the funnel, and I have to say I am in control of the conversation, believe it or not. Do you know? Of course, I work for spirit, and I work for the person that I'm giving the message to, but I'm also in control. So spirit can't demand me to do anything I don't want to do. The client can't demand me to do anything I want to do. I just kind of work as that medium, that balancer in the middle. And you can too. So then you start to attune. What is attunement? Well, really, attunement to me is matching, raising your vibration, and allowing spirit and asking spirit to lower theirs so we can have a conversation. And I always say in the beginning, it might seem like you're imagining things. Because, that monkey mind that we pretty much allow to control most of our day, that's why we need the meditation, right? To get ourselves out of our monkey mind. What we need to do is we need to start learning to attune, ask, and co-create with spirit. And once we start attuning to that energy, we can receive the information. We can ask for the information. And asking's an important thing, because I'd like to know how many of you, by a raise of hands, do exactly what you're told. Bueller? Anyone online? Bueller? Okay, right. No one doesn't want to do anything that they're told to do. But if I would ask for your help, how many would help me? Right? Maybe a few. Bueller? Okay, a few hands. I see a few head nods. Spirit's the same way. We have to ask to be part of that. Ask to be in communication with. Right? And it can come in so many different ways and different forms. I mean, for the sake of our conversation and tonight, I won't go into too many. But in spiritualism, we categorize mediumship in two forms. We have the mental aspect of mediumship, and we have the physical aspect of mediumship. Pretty much the mental aspect of mediumship is where most mediumship resides. And that is through the mental or the spiritual mind of the medium. So this is through proving the evidence, like I had said before and given examples to. Automatic writing, inspirational writing or speaking can be another form of mental mediumship. Spiritual healing is also another form of mental mediumship. When you're connecting as healers, when you're connecting to a source or a power greater than you to impart healing on someone, you're doing mediumship. So that's all part of that mental aspect. And then there's the physical aspect, which is seen with the 5 physical senses. So if you've ever heard of levitation, right? D.D. Holmes was a physical medium who levitated out one story and into another, right? I've got to see that, Or if you see materialization, which, sometimes people might see that shadowy figure appear, and they're seeing it with the physical eye. Mental mediumship, we see it with the mind's eye, right? Anybody see the movie Sixth Sense? Like, I don't see dead people that way. I see them in my mind. And I'm really tired of calling them dead because I really believe they're living so much more than we are, right? So, I don't know, I gotta come up with a new name. But there have been cases where materialization has taken place, where the whole room could see it. And that's physical mediumship. There's also this idea of asports and apports. Anybody ever like walk into a room, go get something, and come back, and there in the middle of the floor is like a quarter, a penny, like a feather, and it was never there? Like you just walked and it wasn't there, and then you turned around and you walked back and it was there. I always call those little gifts from spirit. Somehow they have dematerialized that penny from somewhere and made it reappear right in your tracks. I think you should always take those little gifts and put them in a jar. You don't have to. This isn't a rule of spiritualism or anything like that. But if Spirit is putting something right in your path to say to you, hi, I'm still here, don't just pick it up and put it in your pocket and throw it with the rest of your change, right? Give it a little special place. And watch how many more start to appear because you do that. You know, when we cross over, when we transform, we don't become little angels. I mean, okay. But we don't all of a sudden, when we shed the physical body, shed everything. We don't become all-knowing the minute we cross over. I mean, we still keep our character. My friend Matt won't have his van anymore. I'll take your cat. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, exactly. You know, yeah, he might not have, you know, his van anymore or Virginia Beach, and he sure won't be 34 unless he wants to be, you know. That part of stuff, yeah, we lose that. But the character of who Matt is still exists. Right? We don't get like a free pass, like, oh, good job, you volunteered that one time. Good job. We don't get those, you know. We keep our character. And so with that keeping of our character, we don't become all of a sudden these all-knowing beings, right? And so imagine that. Think about that. Because here's the thing, if you've been trying to call somebody forever and they don't pick up and they don't text back and they don't call you and they make no effort, do you continue to keep calling them? No, right? So think about that. You know, as much as you want to be heard, so does Spirit. As much as you want to be loved, so does Spirit. You know, as much as you want to be understood, so does Spirit. So when you find that penny, instead of saying, oh, I bet you I just, you know, probably just dropped out of my son's pants when he got home and I just didn't notice it, you pick it up and you say, hey, thanks, Dad, and you put it in a jar. Of course, unless you don't want to talk to Dad. But if you do, you recognize it. You pick it up. You hand it over. Put it in a jar. And guess what they're going to do? Just like you would do. You would start paying more attention. You know, you would start going out of your way. The more they communicate and show love, the more you communicate and show love. It's really what it all boils down to. Kindness, compassion, and love. Right? So that's, you know, the step 2 part of it is looking for those kinds of signs too. Being aware, asking. Don't give up asking either. Because I can guarantee you there's probably hundreds of millions of signs a day, but we just sometimes put on our blinders. You know, we just say, oh yeah, not today, you know, or we just are so oblivious to it, and that's okay, because we're meant to have, at least I gotta say this, Spirit has more compassion for us probably than we have for ourselves, because they'll keep trying, I promise. I don't mean to scare you off by saying, oh my gosh, you know, I picked up that penny and now he won't talk to me. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's about the intention though. You know, and so just kind of be more open and aware to that. All right? I think that's what's most important, is to be open and aware to Spirit. and just know, heaven, the other side, Summerland, I promise they live all happy. No one's stuck. I think there was a conversation, it might have been with the sound guy and the Kevin, if you're in there, blink twice. I saw you. I got it. But he had said something about change, something to change about how we don't sometimes like change. And I can't remember exactly what Edgar Cayce reading he brought up, but the thing is energy is never stagnant. Ever. Energy is never still. It is always changing. I don't know how I got to look like this. I sometimes wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and go, what? I'm 18. No, what? Right? Slowly we all change. We can't fight it. Oh, we try. But we can't fight it because energy can't stay still. It can't stagnate. So we can't either. So we always have to be, encouraging ourselves to grow more in understanding. Spiritualism, in its core system, when those girls, all of those years ago, and all of the mediums, I'm telling you guys, people should write about thousands of mediums, undiscovered, unknown, silently sitting there, proving the continuity. Then and now, there are mediums among us, right? And doing all of that, staying connected, and it will continue until we're all out of jobs, which is perfect, but hopefully sooner than later. But spiritualism at its core, in its thing, was always encouraging us to learn more. Learn more. It can be done in books and classes, it can be done in experience. But what truly happens is when we open our mind, we'll continue to always learn more. So did anything I talk about seem paranormal or super scary tonight? Or did it seem like, yeah, you know what? I kind of get it, right? And if you didn't, that's all right too, right? Keep exploring, keep learning. We are out there more than you know. And every spiritualist church, no matter if it's, the National Spiritualist Association of Churches or an independent spiritualist church, or if it's a community or a gathering of like-minded people, give it a shot. Try it out. See what it's like. Open that perspective to yourself. If only once, that's fine. But just open that perspective to yourself. See what's really, truly out there, and not just with your physical senses. See and hear and feel and know with your soul too. I have to thank you all for listening to me. I've been babbling on forever. And I do want to ask anyone if you have any questions at all, because I always say, now's your time, and you can't ask me a question that I haven't heard. Really, you will not surprise me. So if anyone has any questions at all, please feel free to, ask, or I think Ashley, if they have questions online, she has a microphone, because we do want to hear your voice if you have a question, or if anybody online has any questions. Oh my goodness.
We do have some online questions. The YouTube chat has been quite popular, so we're having some great dialogue on there.
All right, sounds good.
People are really enjoying your talk. They love your calm demeanor. We do have one person here on our YouTube chat, Esoteric Fitness.
Great name.
One thing that they said they had a spiritual awakening a few years ago, changed their life for the better, but reverted back to their old self, so to speak. So they were asking, what disciplines do you guys practice as far as meditation?
Perfect. Great question. I'm actually going to compare her or his or them. Question, I love how they said they had a spiritual awakening and then kind of went back. Because the thing is your spiritual awakening is that pair of jeans you bought that you got to break in. You know, the old us is the comfy pair. You know, the pair that we've worn out so well because they fit like a glove. Then we have a spiritual awakening, and then we have to put on a new pair. And who wants to break that in? But in spiritualism, especially in spiritualism with meditation, it's part of our Sunday practice, you know, our church service practice. But not only that, it is an everyday thing, because to us, we have 9 principles, which you can look up, but one of our principles says that true religion is living in accordance to natural and spiritual laws. So what does that mean to me? That means I have to live spiritually. So they said it perfectly. You have to get into a daily practice. If it's only for 5 minutes, make it for 5 minutes. But what's interesting is, and I'm not saying I don't fall off once in a while, because I do. Like, you know, I get caught up, I have teenage kids, I have to run here, I have to run there. But I always make time in every day to connect to myself and connect to that source, that, you know, divine consciousness. Because as soon as you do that, spirit just starts coming around you, right? It's like all of a sudden you've turned on the antenna. Yeah, you turn on the force be with you, right?
I was going to say faucet, because I just went to the bathroom and I was using the bathroom and the faucet came on.
Ah, nice. We just had somebody, I don't know if, I'm just saying it again because of the online people, but someone just had to go to the bathroom and was just hanging out, going to the bathroom, and the faucet turns on, right? Oh, mark that down as a coincidence, not a coincidence, right? Into attunement. But to that question, esoteric, I can't remember the other part. I'm trying to remember the name. But to that, it has to be just that discipline. Just like they said, you have to start carving out. Get up 5 minutes earlier. Go to bed 5 minutes earlier. Take that time. Notice the signs. That's part of a daily practice too. Being grateful, noticing the signs. You have to really start living it every moment in some way. Perfect. All right.
We have another online here on Facebook. Let's see. We got Jan Ham says that, where was I for 4 weeks on a ventilator in induced coma, but I saw movies and most were verified later.
Yeah.
So that was just kind of a comment. Yeah.
I would love to talk about that for a minute if I can, because if you're interested in mediumship, you really should start looking at or researching like near-death experiences, shared death experiences, or like her experience. So it sounded like maybe they were on a ventilator and had experiences. You really should start looking into that because it's fascinating. It is fascinating. I would love to share, if you guys are okay with it for a moment, a shared death experience I had that still today rocks my socks and gets my mind going, whoa. So it was shortly after I was ordained as a minister, I had gotten an email that came across my email box, and it said, clergy assistance needed. Now this is like 2 weeks after I became ordained, you know, like I haven't even pastored a church yet or got real, you know, anything under my toes, just my training in my classes, but not real hands-on experience. So it's an email from a gentleman whose mom is passing away and transitioning because of pancreatic cancer, and they're keeping her at home. but they're not very religious family, but they're kind of spiritual, and they're not sure, but she needs something. Would I mind coming over to the house? All right. So I say, all right, big professional letter. What time would you like me there? Blah, 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 blah. So I drive up to the house, and the first thing I notice is there's sunflowers everywhere, right? Now, for those of you who might not know, the sunflower is the religious symbol of spiritualism. So we don't have like a cross per se, but our sunflower is, because the motto is as the sunflower turns its face to the light, spiritualism turns, humanity's understanding to the light of the infinite, right? It's not that word by word for all of you people studying. That's not the word by word motto, so get it right. So I thought, oh, well, there's a coincidence. So I go up and I meet this gentleman, and he very thorough. Hi, I'm Gary, and here we are, and we're looking for someone. I've kind of looked you up and know what you believe. I think you might be right. Would you like to meet my mom? She'll meet you. And I said, sure. So I met his mom, and she, at this point in time, she had just gotten diagnosed and was, kind of pretty much still coherent and everything. And so we were talking, and I was telling her my beliefs, and she's like, yeah, I believe that kind of stuff too. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And then she goes, can I have a reading? And I said, well, sure, I'll give you a reading, because, again. So I give her a reading, and I leave, and the family says, will you, kind of come over and take care of, the spiritual needs of my mother through her passing. And I said, all right, and I would go over and visit every week. And it was middle of December, maybe the beginning of December. I can't really remember the exact date. And I had to leave town. I had to fly somewhere. And I was really concerned because I knew we were getting to the ending days of her physical life here. And I knew that her kids had her well taken care of. They really didn't need me, but I was concerned and wanted to be available for everyone. And I remember getting back from the trip, and the first thing I did was call Gary, because I really thought they were going to tell me that, the mother had passed over. Marms, we call her Marms. And they're like, no, she's still here hanging on. Can you come over? And I said, sure, I can be there. What time? 7 o'clock. I said, okay. Well, it was starting to snow, and I don't like to drive in snow, and I got worried. So I left early, and I got to their house early, and I was sitting outside in my car. It was about 6:30. And I just sat there, and I was just going to sit there till 7. And then something said to me, you should just text them and tell them you're here early. So I text and say, oh, any chance? I'm here. Can I come up? And they're like, sure, absolutely. So I come up, and the kids are all there. All of her children are there. Grandchildren are there. They're getting ready for the picture boards, and they're getting, because the obvious is happening, right? And so they're getting things ready for her celebration of life. And she's in her bed, very comfortable. The nurse is there, and the kids are spending time with her. Never is she left alone. And they said, can you just go in and do anything you can do to help our mom, because she just needs to let go. And I'm like, yep, of course. Inside I'm going, what am I going to do? Like, I don't know. I got nervous, I got scared, and then I thought, this isn't about me, this isn't about them, it's about her, and it's her process. So I went into the room, and I sat down next to the bed, and I grabbed her hand. And in her hand, she had a beautiful heart stone that one of her children had given her. And I grabbed her hand, and I just closed my eyes. And I just said, Spirit, my soul, her soul knows what to do. Guide us. And in my mind's eye, in my mind, in my clairvoyance, there we were standing, her and I, just standing there, holding hands at a bus stop in the galaxies. And I'm like, what are we doing here? She's like, well, you tell me, I'm not getting on the bus. And I said, oh, all right, and I said, well, you can get on a bus. And she goes, yeah, a few of them have come by, but I don't want to go. I said, well, you don't have to go. You can just stand here, I'll stand with you. And she goes, all right. And so we're standing, and we're looking out into the galaxies, And all of a sudden, her mother and her father appear in a corner. And she looks at me and she goes, I really don't want to go there. I said, you don't have to. You don't have, you can go wherever you want. Yeah, they're there. They'll always be there. It's like, if you want to visit them in 100 years or 10,000 years, you can do that. And she's like, oh, all right. And then, we kept sitting there and just feeling into it. And then the next thing you know, this Volkswagen hippie van pulls up with this guy. Kind of looks like your guards guy here. His name, I can't remember. He looks like kind of Jerry Garcia, right? This guy pulls up, and he says to Marms, he's like, come on, let's go. We can see John Lennon. She was a huge Beatles fan. We can see John Lennon. We got Janice starting in a few minutes. Like, come on, let's go. And she looks at me, and I'm like, you want to go? She's like, oh, not yet. I'm like, okay. So that one goes by. And then all of a sudden in front of us appears this unbelievable, and I can't even describe it, words, no language, no matter what language you speak, has the words to describe this unbelievable sight that appears, a garden or I don't even know. Just it was amazing. The flowers sang, the colors were beyond any spectrum I've ever seen in the physical. And it was just gorgeous. And she looked at me and she goes, I so want to go. And I said, go. And she goes, what if it all falls away? And I said, it won't. And she says, how do you know? And I said, I just know. I said, when you're ready, you'll know too. And then all of a sudden, we heard her children laughing because they were in the other room watching a video, unbeknownst to us. And she says, I did pretty good, didn't I? I said, you did really well. I kind of put another word in there too. So you did really good. They're amazing. Well, your one son's an author of a tarot card book. Your daughter is amazing. Your other son, Gary, he loves you so much. Your other son, they all love you. You're amazing. You did fantastic. They're going to be fine and wonderful. And they're going to grow to be amazing. And she goes, yeah, they are. She goes, all right, go get them. I'm ready to go. And just like that, my eyes popped open and I look at her and I'm like, I look at her and I go out to the room and I said, all right, guys, I think it's time. And they walked back into the room and I sat down on the couch so they could have their private moment. But moments later, you heard one of them cry as she took her final breath. And then her phone dinged, a cell phone dinged that was sitting on the coffee table. It was exactly 7 o'clock, exactly the time I was supposed to show up, right? And it was beautiful. It was amazing. I can't unexperience that experience. I can't give you words tonight that is going to convince you that you live on forever, but through that experience alone, I know I do. And I know you do too, even if you don't believe it. And even like our Facebook person experienced that. How are all of these people from all different religions, from all different corners of the world, having the same or similar near-death experience? How? The only answer I can conclude is because it's real. We exist after this life. And that we will be reunited with all of those that we feel like we've lost. That illusion of separation dissolves because we're all back to being one. So really, if you're intrigued by mediumship or spiritualism, really dig into some of these near-death experiences that, that our viewers are experiencing. Maybe some of you even have had your own. And all I can suggest to you is share it. Share it, share it, and share it. Keep talking about it, even if they don't believe you. I stand or sit before you right now, knowing that no matter what, I will always stand and speak my truth on spiritualism, no matter if you believe it or not, and that's okay. Because I am convinced, beyond a reasonable doubt. I don't know the answers to how it all works, but I am convinced that we live forever. And that's amazing, just that statement alone. Now, it doesn't give you an excuse not to make your bed or learn how to knit or get something done off the list. You can't say, well, I have forever. It doesn't give you that excuse. But it hopefully will start to give you more purpose on why you're here. Sorry, I digressed off into, that's what I do sometimes.
Yes.
Woo!
That was great. Do we have any of the audience members have any questions?
Yes, dear.
Okay,
Okay,
perfect.
she's coming with a microphone.
There's more online
We're in
as
this
well.
hybrid world.
I have 2 quick questions.
Sure.
Would that be okay?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
The first one is kind of unusual. Maybe. You said you've heard them all.
I love unusual. Bring it.
Can you use spiritualist methods or principles to talk to interdimensional beings or extraterrestrials who are supposed to be telepathic? Or does it have to just be humans and other?
So mediumship to me, now again, mediumship's a gargantuan word. Mediumship in its simplicity is communication with the spiritual world. Now, I'm not going to box the spiritual world just to be heaven. I can't. Because we know there's been way too many experiences and talks about different dimensions and beings in those dimensions. I can't just say mediumship is only for talking to our loved ones. Spiritualism, in its organization, is to prove the continuity. And the way we prove the continuity is bringing you an identity of someone who you would have known or can look up, right? As like maybe an ancestor, look up and prove, oh yeah, that's right, his name was Steve, or, But mediumship in general, we have spirit guides, we have teachers, angels, extraterrestrials, whatever you want to name them. I don't get caught up in semantics of words. So mediumship to me is connecting to the spiritual realm. But that's why it's important too, like I say, with spiritualism, we focus on evidential mediumship. But that's just to prove the continuity of life. There's many mediums and there's many spiritualists who talk to many different spiritual beings. Does that answer your question? Oh, good. Okay.
And then my second question was, with reincarnation, like if you want to talk to your great-great-grandmother, but you think maybe they've reincarnated, how does that work? Or is it because like all times are present together, you can still talk to them?
You're so smart.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's talk about reincarnation. It's the big question, right? It's funny because anytime you get a group of individuals together, which spiritualism is, there is no sacred text or anything like that, right? We have our core little beliefs, our 9 principles. They have changed over time as we have changed in our understanding. So I love that you're bringing up reincarnation because I love to have some of the difficult conversations. The reincarnation is like the biggest thing spiritualists want to talk about because it's like either they believe or they don't believe, right? It's like, woo, so let's talk about it. But in your aspect, and in mine, I can only talk from my understanding. We don't deny reincarnation. We also say we can't really prove it though either, right? Because I can't bring a past life version of yourself forward and have you connect to it in a identifying way. Do you know what I mean? Where you'd be able to look it up and confirm it. That being said, if we live forever, please tell me I'm not stuck on one plane existence for the rest of my eonic life. But you actually said what I believe. I believe that time only matters here in the physical. I truly believe that the only plane that linear time exists is here. The illusion of separation is the first major illusion we believe in. The second major illusion is time. So I feel like if you want to talk to your great-great-great-grandmother, I can tap into that energetic force anywhere. If she wants to talk to you too, because remember, it's a two-way street. I could tap into that energy and we could have that communication because time does not exist. Do you know? But it does for us here, big time, right? So I think that's the biggest illusion. So I think we can easily kind of tap into the essence of, you know, if I don't, again, God, that's a whole topic. We could probably go on for 10 hours because I want to say like 18 million things about it. But you said the right answer with the idea of time. You know, because we have to, we like to separate ourselves. We like to think that. You know, my belief system is I'm living multiple lives at multiple times. Like I'm literally, like if you would, a ray going through a prism fractioned out, and this is just one color that you're seeing of me. But yet there's all these other colors living simultaneously with me. Kind of might say why I love the Victorian, I am obsessed with the Victorian age. I was obsessed with the Victorian age before I even knew spiritualism existed. So I feel like there's probably an aspect of me possibly living in that lifetime, you know, without trying to get into a gargantuan lecture of reincarnation. Does that answer your question? All right, and hopefully does it cause any other questions? Or did we?
Yeah, we still have some online questions that I wanted to ask.
Ashley's great. Isn't this community great?
It is.
Gosh, share your gifts. Each and every one of you, just share your experiences.
Okay, we had Lynn on Facebook ask a question, and some other people in the chat had answered, but I'm sure she wanted to get your insight on it as well.
Okay.
Lynn asked, is meditation and daily practice part of attunement?
So no, it's not. So meditation is it's for that physical part of ourselves. The practice of meditation is good for the physical part of ourselves, getting in touch with the spiritual part of ourselves, right? That's the meditative practice. The attunement is different because the attunement is when we're attuning our energy and spirit is attuning their energy to meet and connect. So not every time you meditate do you connect to spirit. Do you know, sometimes you just need to meditate, people. Like if you're like me, you just need to meditate. You just need to regulate your body chemicals. You need to regulate your breath. You need to get yourself, you know, kind of aligned, and you just need to meditate. And then sometimes through meditation, attunement can come. But they're two separate different things. But we use the meditative practice to get ourselves more experienced in attuning. Do you know? Some of the mediums now, they can attune themselves to spirit in just moments. Do you know? Like if someone would say to me, you know, hey, at church, do you want to do messages? Now, I don't need to meditate for an hour to attune to do messages. I say, yes, I will do messages. And I'll take in a moment to attune and ask spirit to be present. But because of my meditative practice, I can attune on a quicker basis. So meditation really, truly is that first stair to the staircase of mediumship. Hopefully that answers their question.
Yes, that was wonderful.
Perfect.
We had another question from our YouTube chat. Chloe Johnson wanted to know, what are the signs of a natural medium?
Oh, a natural medium. You know, I like that she uses that word natural. I think that some of the signs of a natural medium would be that you are sensitive to energy. We have a saying that not all psychics are mediums, but all mediums are psychic. And what I mean by that is, remember how I told you the difference about psychic and mediumship? There's some of these words that we're hearing a lot lately are called intuitive empathic. Oh my gosh, we're really hearing the word empathic a lot, right? So being empathic and being intuitive mean to me that you have realized you're a magnet. That you are a magnet and you are sensitive. You're a barometer and you're sensitive to energy. And energy can be expressed through emotions, feelings, right? Just words. So you start to feel more of the energetic presence of the world. As you start to develop your psychic abilities, you start to train your intuition. You start to train your empathic abilities. If you're an empath and you're struggling, get classes. Start learning boundaries. Start learning how to, regulate your own barometer, because you're just too sensitive. I hate to say that word, because we do need a lot of empathy in this world, but you need to start learning that. And as we start learning that, we start moving into the psychic pattern. If you think about our empathicness and our intuitiveness as like pre-K and kindergarten and through third grade, those fun years when we color and we play and we don't have rules. And then we move into our psychic abilities, which is like junior high and high school. We have to like learn all this stuff that we may or may not use in our lifetime. And then if we decide to go to college, we learn mediumship, right? So for a natural, if we're going to use Chloe's term natural medium, you have to kind of float along the scale of being an empath, an intuitive, or a psychic. Because you have to be familiar with energy. You have to be familiar with frequency, laws of attraction, laws of desire. You have to know how to balance those energies, because then you're going to open up your energies and expand your energies bigger into the spiritual realm, right? So that's a kind of way to tell if you're a natural medium. I'll use her term, but
Okay.
yeah.
Wonderful. Then we also have Rachel here on YouTube, is asking, where do clairaudience and clairsentience dovetail with mediumship?
Oh.
She says, I have felt them as my way of intuiting.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're the same sense. So the same senses that you use to connect with the intuition, because the intuition, again, is an energetic language. So just like you hear things intuitively, the same thing's going to happen mediumistically. Like I'm going to hear, like for example, when I first started, I see in my mind's eye. That's clairvoyance. So when I look at someone, if I'm about to give this woman in front of me a message, right? May I? Okay. So if I'm about to give this woman a message, I ask Spirit to come in. The first thing I see in my mind is a male stepping in from the world of spirit. And he's stepping in and he's coming up to her right side, and he's putting his hand on her shoulder. He's showing me a ring, and there's some importance to this ring. And I'm seeing this in my mind's eye as I'm looking. I hear him say to her, "It feels good to see you again." He also says, "Thank you for allowing me to leave." So that tells me you gave him permission. So you understand that there was this line that he was, should I hold on or shouldn't I? Some medical intervention, and you gave him permission to leave, right? And so I'm hearing him say that to me as I'm seeing her. He's also showing me in my mind the month of July. So I want you to know that that's a connecting month to him. He's, and I'm continuing to have a conversation with him using all of my clairs. I know that he loves her, and I feel the love. Like I'm getting the goosebumps, and because he's so appreciative for her guidance is the word I'm hearing. So she did guide him very well. Also her, and I can't pronounce it, something that you cook with a C, because I'm smelling something very savory, flavorful, spicy almost, and he's making me aware of that. Now, am I really tasting it in my tongue? No. Am I really smelling it with my physical nose? No, but I'm experiencing it. He keeps talking about something. You would feed him something. There's this something. I must be getting hungry too, so I have to. All right. But you see what I'm doing here. And you're also developing this too, I have to say. You see him in your house a lot, moving through corners and moving through spaces. So your clairvoyance is becoming very good, I have to say, because he's helping make that happen. He's also saying to me there's something about summer nights or long nights, something about a song with nights, because I'm starting to hear. That's my clairaudience. I can't sing the song. I want to start singing, it's been a hard day's night and I've been working like a dog. I don't know. But anyways, so when I come home to you, stop. The things that you do. I'm going to start dancing now. So I'm going to sing that, right? So those are, so to our point, thank you for letting me work with you, and thank him for showing up. But my point to the YouTuber, sorry, I'm pointing to you, Ashley, I'm assuming that you're the YouTuber, is that you're going to use all of those clairs in your mediumship. So the same soul senses that you use intuitively are the exact same senses that you're going to use mediumistically. But you're receiving the information from a person or a energy, a soul-to-soul communication.
Beautiful.
Good.
I just have a couple more questions here online.
Okay.
I thought were really good. Beverly here said that they had a spiritual awakening 15 years ago during a meditation in 2018. They were taken through a stargate. And to make a long story short, they said that they received their wings even though they're not an angel. Is that normal?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, we can all have amazing spiritual awakenings. Look at everything's normal. I think that, the wings can represent a whole different array of things. So she knows what her experience was. I can't have that experience for her. But what she's saying is, what I'm saying is normal is absolutely. Her spiritual awakening came in that form of a way. And those wings can represent all kinds of things. It could mean an opening, a purpose, something's awakening within her that wings. Also auras can look like wings. Like when we aurically open, it can almost look like wings. And so absolutely. Here's the biggest thing too, real quick, I'll just digress for a minute. You have to trust what's inside of you. If it doesn't feel right, it's not for you. If it feels right, then it's yours. Take it, own it, and move on. So many times we try to jam ourselves into, I need to do mediumship how she does mediumship because that's the only way. No, you need to do mediumship the way that you connect to spirit. Though we can do it similarity, I cannot say that word, I struggle with that word. Well, whatever. You all know what I'm trying to say. Every time it comes, I hear it good, but when it comes out wrong. We can do it very similar. We can do it very similar, but we're not always going to be exact. It's like if I would ask you all right now to tell me what is love. You're all going to give me a different kind of definition, but yet it's similar. That's how mediumship is. The worst thing you can do is try to pigeonhole yourself into a particular way. Now remember, just because it's your way, it doesn't mean it's their way. So don't get on the opposite of that scale and say, but this is the only way is my way. Don't get on that scale either. Hopefully that, I know I do
Yeah, no,
digress
that's a
too much
great
here.
one.
Keep me in line.
And for
Ashley.
the last question, unless we have any more audience members, but for online last question from Sylvia on Facebook,
Hi, Sylvia.
said when they meditate, I leave very quickly. I used to be able to be halfway in. Am I doing something incorrectly?
No, because if she's meditating on a constant basis, she's learning how to attune herself so she can leave quickly. Like I said, I can attune in just a moment. I wasn't attuned this whole time. I just attuned for that reading. But because of my meditative constant practice, that being said, it's Sylvia, I believe her name is, if you feel or if you want to slow down and not leave as quickly as you do, then just really focus and concentrate on just meditating and not attuning. But if you're happy when you meditate and like you're in meditation for 2 minutes and all of a sudden you're in attunement, that's great if that's how you want it to be. Good. Is there any other questions then in the audience? Yes, there's a couple hands. Sorry, Ashley.
Thank you. So my question is, when does that pivotal moment happen?
Aha. Yeah.
What is that like? Because I meditate, I'm in attunement, I'm floating, I'm vibrating, but I'm new in this. It's only been 3 months.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, that's really
Only
good
3
then.
months.
Like only 3 months
I've
and
never
you're doing
meditated
all
my
of that.
life.
That's
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
You know what? Sadly, I can't give you a precise answer because it happens differently for all of us. You know, the aha moments come very different. And let me tell you, they're going to happen more than just once. I fluctuate on a regular basis, not on a regular, but I've had different aha moments. And then all of a sudden I go back to going, can I? And then I have the connection again. So don't try to, it's not a finish line. You're not trying to get to an end point because this form of communication is just an entire living process. So I have to say to you, good job already, one, because you are connecting. You're just not seeing it in the way you want to see it yet.
It's not, I think that I'm waiting for that, somebody's just gonna start talking because
Yeah.
because I've had all those experiences.
Yeah, yeah.
I've heard the voice, so
you want to recreate that exact thing, but none of us communicate the exact
Right.
same way. So you're shutting out other opportunities by looking for a repeat experience than just having a experience.
Okay.
Right? So just have the experience. Every time you float, every time you go away, if all you see is a color, yay, that's a connection. And then you bring that back with you and you say, why did I see that color? Oh, because I need more of this in my life. Or maybe I just saw that color because it reminded me of my grandmother and I missed her so much, it felt good to feel her presence. And then you go on to a next experience. If you're trying to recreate the experience that you may have had, like an aha moment that you did have, that aha moment had its time.
Right.
Now it's time to create another one.
Okay.
Does that make
So
sense?
the shifting is just once you tune in, turn on,
Yeah, tune in, turn on, tap up.
Yeah,
I think that's
exactly
what Esther
she
says. Yeah.
says. Exactly. So once you have that moment, then every single time after that, you just shift.
Well, not every single
Not
time
every
because
single
we're going to
time?
be human. I
Okay.
have good days and bad days.
Okay.
You know, one of my aha moments for a moment, my ex-mother-in-law passed away suddenly. She had a heart attack and she had this operation and she was able to see all of her kids. It was fantastic. Like, it really, not the heart attack, excuse me, but the fact that everyone, even her sisters, were all in town. She gets released from the hospital that night. She goes to bed to never wake up. And at first, even in my beliefs, and sadly my ex-husband was the one who found her, which was devastating. So in my beliefs, I'm like, why? Why would you do this? Why wouldn't you cue me? Why wouldn't I go? Like, I wanted to, and so I became like I'm like, I don't believe anything. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. All of a sudden she comes to me in a dream, which wasn't a dream, and she shows me something. And 2 weeks later, Exactly what she showed me happened. And I thought, oh, see, there I go, shifting my consciousness back into that human physical part of myself. You know, but you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. You're going to have connected days. You're going to have non-connected days. You know, but again, I go back to living the lifestyle, right? So even if you're not connecting to spirit every day, connect to yourself every day, because you're spirit too.
Right.
And then create the next aha moment, but don't try to keep recreating.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Did you have a question?
Oh.
Okay.
Mine's just simple. You said we have to ask.
Yeah.
Can you help us ask? Because I don't know what to say.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
I know I have it.
Yep.
I've had it my whole life, and I've had cancer, I've had this, I've had that, and now I'm just getting back to me.
Yeah.
And I want to get back to who I am.
Sure.
And that's part of who I am, because I've had it all my life.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how to get there.
Sure. Well, and let's rephrase that a minute. You're not recreating, you're not going back, you're recreating who you are. Right? So that then you're asking, you know, we have in the spiritualist religion, we have a healing prayer. And it says, I ask this great unseen healing force to help both present and absent ones who are in need of help and to restore them to perfect health. You know, and I ask them to remove all obstructions from my mind and body and to restore me to perfect health. And I will do my part. There's the biggest part. You can't just do this on a whim on a weekend for an hour. It has to start to be incorporated into your daily living. So you are going to ask, like when you start meditating, start attuning. When you're attuning, you ask, what do I need to do? And the answer might be simply this. And it might be this for a day, a year, a week, 2 months. There's no timeline, but you ask, and then you pay attention. That's the other thing. We have to pay attention to it. So if it says, just be, or just love yourself more, or pray for people. Do you know? I don't know what it's going to say to you, because I don't know, but you have to ask. And that's all you simply do is ask. And whatever vision, as long as it's coming from the place of attunement, it has to be coming from the heart and the soul, not the mind. Because spirit is never going to live your life for you. That is your job. The worst thing that you can do is start living in your life accordance to what spirit tells you to do. You have to live your life with what you want to do, attuned and co-creating with spirit, not being told by spirit on what to do. So just allow that part. I know it's patience. I'm not very good at either. Like, I have taken a lot of classes. I have had a lot of talks with myself. But you're already here, being here, finding a community, talking to people, taking classes, meditating, being quiet in the stillness, being in nature. All of those things are going to help grow and recreate you, because I don't want to go back to the old you. I'm glad you had some of that, but we're going to bring that forward and recreate it into the new you. Yeah? And you're getting there, right? Because let me tell you, there's nothing random about you being here tonight. And there's nothing random about the people sitting around you or the things you're going to experience tomorrow or the next day or the next day. Because the thing is you can't unhear everything I just said. And you can't unhear what you just experienced. So you're going to incorporate that now into your life somehow. Okay, good. Yay, I think we're over time too. I do have to acknowledge.
Yes, well, thank you so much,
Okay,
Stacy.
thank you for having
That was
me.
wonderful. I know all of our online guests said you were amazing. They loved everything you shared.
Nice.
So thank you so much.
Thank
and
you
thank you
for
all for
being here.
joining. And our bookstore is open until 8:30. So if anyone's interested to stop in the bookstore, get some good crystals so you can help
get
you
some
on your
good books.
mediumship
I saw
training.
one about
Yes.
the afterlife. I'm going to buy right now. I'm glad it's still open till 8:30.
Awesome. Well, thank you
All
all
right.
so much.
Thank you
Have
for
a good
having
night.
me, Ashley. Thank you. Thank you.